It's great to be with you guys, and I can't emphasize enough. If you can, please give to the GoFundMe page. Obviously, the things that are happening in Australia with the fires have been devastating, and Broome School needs your support. So I really encourage you to do that. Yeah, I want to share with you kind of a story about my journey. Let me get this. I've got images and stuff. Let me get this all shared out real fast. And you should be able to see cool stuff. Give me 30 seconds. Hopefully everyone is seeing my picture. Actually, hold on. There we go. All right. All right, maybe not. I think it just cut out on me. Oh, that's exciting.
No,
I have PowerPoint up, and PowerPoint just crashed on me. How exciting is that? Well, suffice it to say, let me. Are you still seeing the screen share? Hold on.
We can see you and Eddie Wu in the background.
Yeah, Eddie Wu. Yeah, because I had the live stream on the other thing. Let me try one more time. It just restarted. All right, hold on. That was weird that it just froze on me.
Well, we do love Eddie Wu in Australia, though, so it's okay.
Eddie's a good guy. He is truly
a good champion, a genuine. You know what? A genuine champion. Such a humble man, and I think you've got your right thing up now. I can see the big AussieED help slide.
So hold on. Well, maybe. Technology works until it doesn't. All right, well, I'm going to stop sharing, and I'll just talk. Let me drag this over here since it's totally frozen. Well, I'm Jon, and I'm a teacher. And what I really wanted us to have an opportunity to dialogue with is why did you get into teaching? So the question I'd like you to think about as we discuss is why? Why did you get into teaching? And what I was about to show you was some images of me and how I got into teaching. I'll just tell you the story. I started teaching in 1986. Now that dates me. I'm an old man now. I started teaching at an inner city school in Denver, Colorado, and I learned how to teach there. I had some amazing students who really taught me how to teach in many ways, because you got thrown into kind of the difficult public school. I'm not sure what the equivalent would be in Australia, and I really learned how to teach. And then my career progressed. I taught 24 years, and I had pictures of me in my 24 years as a young man. And as you can see now, I've got lots of white hair. And back in those days, I actually had black hair. And my life was spent around about my students. And I always ask this question, even before flipped learning became a thing. I asked this question, what do my students really need from me today? What's the best use of the time I can have with my students? And I really felt like I always asked that question. What is it they actually need from me? And my career progressed, and then something crazy happened. Some of you know some of this story. Is in 2006 and 2007 school year. Of course, here in the U.S., we split the years from fall to summer, which of course you do too, but it's opposite. And that's when Aaron Sams and I had this crazy idea to start experimenting with the idea of using video in our classroom, and the idea eventually became almost flipped learning. And my guess is many of you have some sense of what that means. And all throughout that, I was really trying to focus on my students and what is it that my students needed. And really, that's how Flipped came about. We had students who were missing class. We had students who weren't learning very well. And we said, what can we do to help our students? And that was really the focus. And that's how Flipped Learning, from our perspective, was born. As a note, we didn't necessarily invent Flipped Learning. We were the ones who helped bring it to the world in many ways. But so my life took a very interesting twist when Aaron and I wrote our first book. It got pretty popular, and it changed my life. But let me, and I'm going to say this. I'm not saying this to say that Jon's anything special, because frankly, I'm not. I'm just a teacher like you. And my life took this twist, and I had this crazy chance to visit the world. I've been to Australia. I've been there many, I don't know, 5 or 6 times in the last 6 or 7 years. I've been to India and Dubai, and I've been to Argentina and London, and I've lived a life in China, and I mean almost everywhere in the world. I could tell you stories of the places I've seen, and many people, they educators hear that and they think, oh, that'd be great, that'd be awesome, and it was, and it is, but something kept nagging me, and some of you in Australia, maybe some of you who are actually listening right now, some of this is your fault. Can I continue the story with where I'm at now? Is that I'd go to our Reach Every Student conference in Australia. I'd go to conferences here in the States, and people would ask me, John, would you ever go back to the classroom? Because, I left the classroom to be the global traveler, flipped learning evangelist guy, or whatever I was, right? And I always said, yes, I would, because I miss the kids. I even had an instance where I was working with a company. A company had hired me to do some work for a school, and a U.S. company that you would all recognize the name if I said it, but I won't. And they were all sitting around at dinner one night, and they were having this conversation, and somebody asked the question, would you ever go back to the classroom? And to my horror, you know what they said? Are you kidding? I couldn't deal with those kids. They were talking about their expense accounts and the money they were making, and I just about wanted to throw up. So long story short, about a year ago, in fact, it was a year ago, it was at the FETC conference, which I believe is happening right now in Florida here in the States. And I was out with some of the faculty from the Flipped Learning Global Initiative, which is the organization that I work for. And these teachers are sharing about what's going on in their classrooms. And frankly, I was almost moved to tears because I realized that I missed it. I'd missed working day to day, day in and day out with students. You see, I was at a point where it's like, yeah, it's great to travel and to see the kinds of things that I saw, the amazing things I've seen in Australia and everywhere else. But I needed to reconnect with my why. And so the comment or the topic of our discussion here today is why. Why did you get into teaching? And as I look back on that why, I came to a strong realization. So about a year ago, in fact, it was a year ago this week, my wife and I boarded a plane. We lived in Chicago, and we flew to Arizona. I don't know if you know U.S. geography, but Chicago in the winter is cold, like really, really cold. And Arizona is not. So we took 2 weeks to kind of refigure out who we were and what we were about. And as I'm hiking the hills around our condominium, I was asking what is it that I need to be about? And honestly, one theme came out. John, you need to be reaching every student. And not just reach every student in a broad, sweeping way, but reach every student individually, one student at a time. And so we began a quest to start looking for a place where I could go back and teach. And so there's a lot of story to go here, but actually, I guess I'll briefly share the story. I've had this privilege of visiting lots of schools. I was just in Australia in October. I had a chance to visit a couple of schools. What amazing places. Steve Griffith's school and Steve Cracknell School. We were in Brisbane. It was amazing. And I've seen so many of the schools there all over Australia and all over the world. And I began to think, if I was to pick a school that I could work at, that I visited, which school would I pick? And honestly, the first school that came to my mind was the school that I reached out to, and lo and behold, I'm teaching again. So like you, I worked on just a half an hour ago. I'm working on a test for my students. Actually, I'm gamifying the classroom because it's boss battle. We call it boss battle. It's not a test. I was making flip videos just this week. I had a huge pressure. I went to school. I got there at 6 a.m. on Friday morning so I could get things done because, yeah, I'm like you, a teacher. And what I found this year, as I've been teaching now for, what has it been, since August in our calendar, maybe 5 or 6 months. And what I've discovered is I love teaching. I love being around students day in and day out with my students every day, reaching them one at a time. It's been really gratifying because I realized that what I needed to be about was that more individual contact. Yeah, I'm still doing stuff with flipped learning and traveling some, not as much. But what I'm really realizing is that my why is I need to reach every student. And I don't know what your why is. You know, why did you get into teaching? My guess is you have a similar story to mine. There's a reason why you got into teaching. And I'll bet it's not so that you can be a master of chemistry or a master of science or a master of some language that you're teaching or whatever. I bet it comes back to you're there for the right reasons. Now maybe you've gotten to the point in your life where it's like, well, is it still worth it? And I know, I even see some of the teachers at our school, some are a little more discouraged, right? What is it that you're in it for? I would really encourage you to remember that we serve such a high purpose. We serve as educators. We get the privilege, the absolute privilege to change the world, one kid at a time, one kid at a time. And let me close with just a kind of a way to challenge you in your thinking too. I'm not sure if a lot of you are familiar with some of the later work that Benjamin Bloom did towards the end of his career. But in 1984, he wrote a paper called The Double Sigma Problem. I may misquote the exactly. Long story short, he challenged the world to solve a problem. The challenge that he asked, he says, we should solve the double sigma problem. So let me explain. So everyone knows about Bloom and his taxonomy, but really what he spent most of his time, later on at least, was trying to figure out how to do mastery learning. And so mastery learning was his thing. And the research shows that if you do mastery learning, students will show 1 sigma, 1 standard deviation improvement by most measures. But then if you want to even do better than 1 standard deviation, 2 sigma, he called it the 2 sigma problem, then you can get the best way to teach, this is what research says, is basically one-on-one tutoring. So like if you're Prince Harry, right, when you were a kid, maybe you had your own private tutor or something like that. That's the best way. But what he challenged, he said, can we find a method of instruction that's as good as private tutoring, if you will, and yet can be done with the masses? Obviously, our school systems can't afford, private tutors for everybody. And as I've contemplated that, I really realized, and I'm going to make a bold statement, that when you couple flipped learning with mastery learning, then you're solving the double sigma problem. And what I've been able to do at my school in just the 4 or 5 short months is I'm solving the double sigma problem, 1 student at a time. My students' scores have been amazing. They've been learning. I've really been gratified to see that, it's actually was just scary, right? Because here I've been traveling the world telling people how to teach. I used to teach, but now, does it still work? And I'm happy to tell you it does. And so I would encourage you to resolve that double sigma problem in your class, in your context, with your students, because I know you can. So thanks for having me on. I know that you are amazing educators. The fact that you're on this broadcast, this live stream, tells me that you care about education and care even especially and specifically about the Broome School and the things that they're facing. So I really encourage you to do what you can to reach every student in every class every day. Thank you very much.